Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto woke up in a world of eternal night and became the strongest shinobi? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Strike a match. There was a hole in Naruto's chest. Why? Why was there a hole in his chest? Was this somebody's idea of a joke? If so, he wasn't laughing. Try as he might, he couldn't make sense of it. Blasted thing didn't even hurt. Wasn't a wound, either. It was just there. Right where his heart should be, just visible beneath his tattered orange jacket. He could stick his hand right through it, flail his fingers around and everything. He did just that and felt perfectly fine. Well, not fine per se, but still pretty strange, you know. He should be panicking, he knew. Hell, he had panicked 3 hours ago when he'd woken up here. Now the panic had bled away, leaving only morbid curiosity behind. Well, he thumbed his chin as he considered the perfectly tear in his torso. This is a problem. That's putting it mildly. Kurama didn't sound much pleased with it, either. How are you even alive? Naruto didn't dare answer that question. Instead he cast another glance to his surroundings. That, at least, remained unchanged. Blue eyes rose to behold the vast wasteland before him. Nothing but sand, sand and more sand as far as the eye could see. A ghastly moon hung high above, bathing the dark sky in perpetual night. A dead world. Even the land of wind looked livelier than this, an endless and vast wasteland that stretched on into eternity. I don't think we're in the elemental nations anymore. You think? That was putting it mildly. Was he dead? He didn't feel dead. If anything, he'd never felt more alive. He could feel the sage's power still coursing through him, warming his blood and opening his eyes. If he cut his finger, he'd probably bleed. On a whim, he dug a finger into his palm. A thin bead of blood welled up beneath his thumb, the wound sealing almost immediately thereafter. Ouch! A quick pinch to his arm confirmed his suspicion. Yup, felt that. Still alive, I guess. Of course you're alive, fool. Kurama's voice thundered in his head. I wouldn't be here if you weren't. I just wanted to be sure, ya know. Honestly, you're denser than a brick sometimes. Well, that settled it. He didn't know where he was, and he didn't much like it. The last thing he remembered was a terrible clash with Sasuke, a burning pain in his right arm. And then, nothing. Hopefully he was all right, wherever he was. He'd been on his last legs, and even with time to recover, he didn't much fancy his chances in an empty world like this. Oi, on your left. Craning his neck, Naruto spied a building in the distance. At least he assumed it was a building. Some strange structure of a sort. Maybe a fortress, castle, he couldn't tell from here. But it was something, and something, as they say, was better than nothing. Maybe they had food, or barring that, hopefully a bed. He felt strangely hungry, and not the good kind. Oddly enough, it helped to have a destination, if only to settle his mind. He set off at a brisk jog. From there it didn't take long to reach once he actively exerted himself. Kurama's chakra didn't fail him. In no time at all he found himself standing before it. Turned out the castle was a lot bigger close up. Great looming gray walls swelled before him, seeming to touch the heavens themselves. No door to be seen. Seemed the only way up was through. All right, then. He cracked his knuckles. Guess I'm walking up that. A dull crack of sound snapped at his flank, causing him to jump. Who approaches the walls of Las Noches? Gah, sneaky little. He spun and found himself face to face with a well-endowed woman clad in black and white, slender as she was tall. Hazel eyes blinked back at him, set within a stern visage crowned by long, flowing emerald hair. A single crimson line ran the length of her face from one cheek to the other, tracing across the bridge of her nose. Stranger still, an odd, skull-like mask sat atop her head, bearing curved horns. There was a sword at her side, and by the look of her, she knew how to use it. Naruto couldn't help but frown at that last bit. What was someone doing with a sword all the way out here? And why was she glaring at him? Why are you here, intruder? She planted a fist on her hip, fingers straying perilously close to her blade. Speak, lest I cut you down. She'd do it, too. Naruto found he could still sense that much. Her emotions were a tangled knot, but beneath it he sensed a steely resolve. That sword of hers would come out if he held his tongue. Luckily for her, he didn't have any intention of picking a fight here. Well, he crossed both arms behind his head with a sigh. I was hoppin', you could tell me. Kinda lost, here. You are a hollow, an Arankar. She didn't quite scoff at him, but it was close. How are you lost? Confusion twisted his brow into a furrow. Hollow, Arankar, what are those? I'm human. Silence stretched between them, and in it, Naruto wondered if he'd said something wrong just now, because the woman was looking at him like he'd grown a second head. He scratched his cheek. That seemed to reactivate her, if only for a moment. Are you mad? Her frown redoubled. You are far from human, lost soul. What in the log's name was she on about? He'd never heard of those. And a soul, all right. That's just rude. Anger stirred and his right eye began to twitch. I may be lost, but I'm pretty sure I'd know if I was this, hollow or whatever. There is no if about it, intruder. The swordswoman shook her head, green hair swaying side to side. You are one. I am not. Here at last, his temper slipped its leash. He flung up his arms with an aggravated growl. Look, if you're just going to keep calling me names, I'm leaving. You're daft. Her eyes flicked down to his chest, then met his again. There is, she stepped forward, a hole, her finger stabbed into his collarbone, in your chest. Here at last, a touch of heat weaved its way through her words. Humans do not have those. Her forehead smashed against his, bringing with it a faint, earthy scent as those steely hazel eyes drilled into his flickering azure. They cannot live with such a wound. Oh, was she worried about him? It'll heal. He nudged her hand down. I've lived through worse. Remind me to tell you the time my best friend blew out my lungs. If I healed from that, I can heal from this. The woman retreated, blinking at him. You are strange, lady. You don't know the half of it. Anyone could see that there was nothing to be gained from this argument. With a brisk nod, Naruto made to move past her. Look, I'm leaving. She caught a tattered sleeve in hand. Halt, I'm not done with you. Now, what? He pivoted to face her. I'm getting hungry and you're starting to make me mad, miss. Nalil. She offered him her hand. I am the third Espada. You would do well to show me respect. Oh, sure. On a whim, he reached out and shook her hand. If it's names you're after, I'm Naruto. Nell's brow shot into her hairline and mask alike. A strange name for a strange soul. Well, she wasn't wrong there. Don't blame me, blame my parents. That got a quizzical blink out of her. You remember your past? Well, yeah. Naruto squinted at her, still clinging to he rand. It's my life. Kinda lived it, you know. Why wouldn't I remember it? Her mouth opened and closed, struggling to find words. At length, she managed a weak sounding, hollows don't remember their past lives. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Like I said, I am not a hollow. You clearly are. There's a mask fragment on your jaw. Was that why his face felt so itchy? He touched his freeing hand to a whiskered cheek and felt the faint fragments of something there. Without a mirror, he couldn't be sure. Who knows? It might improve your ugly mug. Do you understand now? Nell's frown returned with a vengeance that would have made Sasuke proud. Really, Nalil was too difficult for him to remember, much less pronounce. Easier to shorten it to something he'd be able to recall. Speaking of which, another question was nagging at him, one of many he'd had since bumbling his way into her. I gotta ask though. A beat of silence passed between them. At length Naruto tilted his head. What the heck's an espada? Surely you jest. A faint spot of color hit her cheeks as she yanked her hand from his. Are you trying to make me angry? He felt a flicker of something from her then, a vague sense of pressure bearing down on his shoulders in some unseen weight. Naruto shrugged it off like so much water off a duck's back. If she thought to intimidate him, she had another thing coming. He'd stared down gods and monsters, fought things that would drive men mad. Kagaya made Nalil look like a harmless child by comparisons. That said, he wasn't here to pick a fight. No, no, he waved his hands to fend her off when she reached for her sword. Not at all. I'm just really confused about all this. I woke up here, you know. Slowly, almost reluctantly, her fingers uncurled from the hilt. You mean to say you died and awakened as an Arankar? That shouldn't be possible. Lady, I don't know what that means. He clicked his tongue at her. And I ain't dead. Kurama would be gone if I was. You don't have a sword on you, at that. Long lashes fluttered in a slow blink. Never mind. What is a Kurama? Is it a dish humans eat? Naruto nearly choked on his spit. I like this one. Kurama's low growl pervaded his mind. Deathwish aside, she's got spirit, which I'm starting to think we might be. Wait, spirit, as in deceased. A knot of dread began to coil in the young man's stomach, bringing with it the rare touch of fear, the first he'd felt since he'd found himself dead. To hear such words from a stranger was one thing, but from the partner he trusted his life with, well, that was a whole nother kettle of fish. He couldn't be dead. He just couldn't. There was still so much he needed to do. He flicked a thought inward. Are we? You tell me. I've been pushing chakra to that hole for the last 5 minutes, and it still isn't healing. Everything else seems intact. His world lurched, threatening to bring him to his knees. Dead, which meant someone had killed him. Likely Sasuke. Had he killed him, too? Had they died together in their final clash? They'd both been on their last legs during their final battle, exhausted and nearly out of chakra. It wasn't a stretch to imagine. But dead, he still had all his chakra, and the sage's power to boot. How could he be dead? You're asking me. Kurama sounded just as lost. I knew your old man bound us together with that blasted Shinigami, but to think it would transcend death. It was too much. His pupils shrank as he made a keening noise. Some of his concern must have shown through, too, because Nell took pity on him. Once more she approached, but slowly this time. He didn't truly notice her until she touched him, couldn't bring himself to react until her fingers threaded with his. The sudden tenderness startled him. When he looked to her he found no anger, no irritation, only calm, placid understanding for his plight. Come with me. Slowly, gingerly. She turned and took a step back, guiding him towards the castle. Worry not. I will see you tended to. Naruto found himself stumbling after her, still dazed. Tended to? Hey, wait a minute. What'd you think I need? Hazel eyes flicked over her shoulder, down to his ruined outfit. A change of clothes, for starters. He whined a little, head drooping as he realized what she intended. Ah, but I like orange. That may well be, she said, but you can't go about wearing those rags. Naruto grumbled, yet let himself be led along regardless. He couldn't really be dead, could he? Lose control. How do I look? Hardly the words Nalil expected this morning, but there it was. Naruto twisted from side to side before her in her quarters, regarding his outfit with, not hate, he didn't have a mean bone in his body, but annoyance all the same. He wasn't much pleased with the color. She supposed the discomfort was to be expected. It had taken her a week, a full 7 days, to get him out of those ruined rags, another to convince him to wear something else, and nearly a third to make him keep the garments he was currently draped in. And a good thing she had, or she would have snapped and threatened him with physical harm. Clad in the atypical uniform of most Arankar, he looked entirely ill at his ease. Feigning an impassive aura, the Espada raised a pale hand to hide her mouth, and the faint smile she wore there. Mustn't laugh. If she did now he'd tear them off and parade around in his boxers again. Chiruchi nearly had an aneurysm last time, to say nothing of Neutra. Nell thumbed her chin and tilted her head. Then tilted it some more. What? Naruto spun in place, looking self-conscious. What's with the long face? Not bad. She thumbed her chin, nodded once, and smiled, a rare and happy thing. Black and white looks good on you. Good. He scoffed and tugged at his collar, blue eyes sparkling. How is this good? He'd gotten better at that since he'd settled in here, more willing to speak his mind. It doesn't feel good. I feel like a damn doll. Her lips quirked. Better than you running around. Naruto held up a finger. Paused. Considered what she'd said. Sulked. Nell tossed her hair over one shoulder and preened a little. Another point to her. Poor boy. He really did look miserable. She took pity on him at the last. You don't have to wear it like Ulquiorra. It's hardly a uniform. Re-up. She was still speaking when Naruto reached down and tore the collar of the uniform away, exposing his neck, a good bit of his chest, with the hole therein. Yet for all his childish antics, his smile was pure. Radiant even. It was the first time he'd smiled at her like that since they'd met. The ice was thawing between them these last few days, slowly but surely. Was that not a good thing? Surely it was. Her heart skipped a beat at the thought. She wasn't sure why, but it made her chest ache. Dondochaka and Pesci would surely get along with him, once they met. Where were they, anyway? She'd not seen them for the last few days. Much better. Naruto flopped down beside her on the bed with a Cheshire grin, startling her. I can actually breathe now. Nell cast a baffled look at him. You're dead. You don't need to breathe. Pretty sure I do. Come. Rather than retort, she rose. It's time for Sonido training. Already. Naruto uttered a jaw-popping yawn, but didn't deny her request, slouching into the hall after her. I keep telling ya, I don't need that. I can move plenty fast without it. Of that Nell had no doubt, but it wouldn't do for him to be unprepared. She couldn't be everywhere. Likewise, she couldn't protect him forever. Sooner or later someone would take issue with Naruto and try to pick a fight. One in particular was likely to do so sooner rather than later. It was the way of hollows. Some of them had regained their humanity while others remained every bit the beasts they'd been before. Their footfalls echoed through the empty hall, lending his words an odd echo. If there was one thing Nell disliked about this place, it was the atmosphere. Dead, lifeless, devoid of life and humanity. Each Espada had their own quarters to be sure, but beyond them, the halls of Las Noches were just as barren as the desert without. It irked her at times. Sometimes she even found herself struck with a strange longing to visit the human world. A remnant from her past life, perhaps. Oi, are you even listening? I am. She lied effortlessly, craning her neck to look back at Naruto. Tell me, can you at least use a Sero? He laughed merrily. Does a tailed beast bomb count? Oh, Nalil arched a pale eyebrow Naruto's way. Hey, come on. Don't look at me like that. Another brow rose to join her first. Naruto's sulk returned and brought a slew with it as he stabbed both hands into his pockets. All right, twist my arm why don't ya? There it was, that small, secretive smile again. He wasn't cowed by her reproach, rather, he seemed content to ignore her attempts to train him, just as a small child might ignore vegetables. Such a strange Arankar. He wasn't even trying to be, he simply was. She'd been lucky in that regard, indeed, fortunate to learn this truth early on. Not only did it spare her a great many headaches, but she felt she had begun to unravel the mystery that was the latest guest of Las Noches. It wasn't his insistence that he was still alive, it was his lust for life and fascination for all things colorful. And his hunger. For reasons she couldn't understand, he had an insatiable craving for human food. They didn't need to eat, a fact she'd tried and failed to impress upon him, only made it all the more baffling. No rank for him either, he didn't want one, nor a Fracken to attend him for that matter. Instead, he puttered around the castle whenever he wasn't with her, making every effort to learn the names of each Arankar he met. He baffled many of her brethren, and in some cases, confusion had turned to hate. Neutra couldn't stand him. No, perhaps that was too soft a word for someone like him. He despised Naruto. Not only did the chipper blonde refuse to fight him, but he seemed intent on making friends with him. Neutra loathed allies, friends, help, any of it. A fight was all the Mad Mantis ever craved, beast that he was. She supposed that spoke for Naruto's character. If that braggart hated someone, then they were undoubtedly pure of heart. Or whatever passed for a hollow heart. How would she stay mad at Naruto, thus? The answer was simple, she couldn't. Lively boy that he was. What would Lord Aizen think of him? The thought came out of nowhere, but it still chilled Nell's blood. Naruto likely wouldn't give a flying fig for their Shinigami lord, but it didn't change the fact that he'd upset the natural order here. That would doubtlessly earn Aizen's gaze if nothing else. Would he try to control him? Something told her that would end poorly. One could not tame a storm. You'd have better luck trying to put reins on the moon. To even try was folly. But that moment was neither here nor there. She would protect him until he came into his own. It was her duty to the weak, after all. How little she knew. I'm thinking it still needs some color, though. Naruto's sudden remark snapped her back to reality. He'd gotten remarkably good at that. The outfit, I mean. Nell touched a finger to her lips. You really do like that color. Yup. He beamed. Here, watch. As she looked on with mild intrigue, Naruto touched one hand to the black sash around his waist. Before her very eyes the once drab color became a lively amber. Not satisfied with that alteration alone, he reached up and slapped a palm atop each shoulder as though to embrace himself. Beneath his fingers the once static material gained size and mass, creating a long flowing, high-collared jacket over his Arankar uniform. He thrust his arm through a half-formed sleeve, rimmed with black flames around the edges, donning the new cloak even as he created it. How are you doing that? Still changing his attire, Naruto raced ahead of her with merry laugh. Nell darted after him in time to see him take a right, then burst through a door, all but leaping into daylight. Wait, shading her eyes, she raced after him. She didn't have to go far. Stood under a balcony under the false sun of Las Noches, he looked more vibrant than ever before. Sorry for running. He crossed both arms behind his head, not sounding apologetic in the least. Wanted to surprise ya. Only then did she see the other alterations he'd made. The white and black colors of his uniform were still there, but they were muted now, more vibrant somehow despite the change. The richly colored cloak he wore drew the eye in a way few things could, a rich orange framed by those embroidered black flames she'd seen before. All told, Nalil thought the orange and black contrasted rather nicely with the white of his trousers, but how had he done that? Tada, he preened, giving himself a once-over. It's no Hokage cloak, but close enough. Reminds me of when I fought pain, ya know. Another little spin as he admired his handiwork. I put my own spin on it. Think I got everything right. Her eyes widened. How did you do that? What, this? He squinted at her in the sun, rather reminding her of a fox. You mean creation of all things. I've been able to do it for a while now. Why do you people wear black and white, anyway? Just as quickly he changed tact and threw her off again. Ain't that a little dull? Nell felt herself bridle. Excuse me, I didn't mean anything by it. The blonde shrugged. Did it ever occur to you to, I dunno, wear something with more color? The third Espada opened her mouth to retort in kind. Closed it, opened it a second time, then closed it a third. Why did they wear black and white? Someone once said it was the reverse of the Shinigami, many of whom they loathed. But why did they stick with such a bland color scheme? It wasn't forced on them by any means. You may have a point. A hint of heat hit her cheeks. Lord Aizen suggested we wear such, but he's not enforced it. Aizen, huh, his brow furrowed. Haven't even met the guy and I dislike him already. What about you? Long lashes fluttered in a brief, startled blink. I beg your pardon. He elbowed her. What kinda colors do you like? Nell paused, her thoughts grinding to a halt, lingering in a mire of confusion. She'd never thought of such a color she liked. Her eyes drifted to the false sky overhead. Fake though it was, it still offered more color than the rest of this ruined world. A faint smile dimpled her cheeks. Blue, she said at last. His eyes lit up at once and she knew she'd said something he liked. Well, now you've done it. I think Kurama likes you. There it was, that curious mention of someone she couldn't see. Another reminder of his madness. But maybe, just maybe, this kind of madness wasn't so bad every once in a while. I still do not understand how you did that. Creation of all things is pretty broken. He held up his left hand and a blue blaze burned within, while a scarlet shroud shimmered in the right. It's not even my jutsu. I inherited from the old sage, you know. I'm still getting the hang of it. So, you can just create whatever you want. She felt it a fair question. Anything at all, within reason, I guess. He extinguished the flames in his hands and stepped past her, looking out at the dunes and the great red pillars dotting them. I've been practicing a little. Something shifted in her peripherals. 0.0.0.0. His sixth sense shrieked a warning. Naruto blew out a sharp sigh. Now, of all times, he felt the attack coming a mile off. Really, when you could sense negative emotions, it was just too easy. Nell must have noticed something too, because she'd only just begun to pivot. Too slow. Stepping in, he checked her with his hip, nudging her ever so slightly to the right. She made a noise of confusion, then protest, but he paid her little heed. His right hand was already rising, just as a shadow was falling. A massive crescent-shaped blade swept down. 5 firm fingers swept up. Steel met flesh. The former yielded with a gritty crack as the ground splintered beneath him. 2 eyes beamed up at a single sneering orb. Neutra, right? Naruto smiled. It was not a nice smile, Nalil thought, watching the weapon creak in his grasp. Don't you know ambushes are for weaklings? Leave Nell alone. TCH. His prey struggled, to no avail. This isn't any of your business. You're not the one I'm after. Honestly, it was adorable watching his prey flail and try to pry his weapon free. He stamped down on the ugly thought. Prey, where had that come from? He disliked Neutra's attitude, sure, but he'd never once thought of the lesser Espada as something to hunt down. And yet the more he raged at him, the more Naruto felt the urge to laugh. Oh, I think it is. His smile grew instead. Now say you're sorry. His adversary bridled. Or what? You little shit. His body blazed gold. Or you'll be sorry. Silence stretched between them. You think I'm scared of you? Neutra laughed into it, a low, coarse sound that grated on his last nerve. I've never even seen you throw a punch since you got here, not once. He leaned forward, sneering at him. Look at you, an Arankar without a weapon. You can't even use your true power. Naruto quirked a brow. Is that really what you think? Ha, it's obvious, ain't it? The madman's sudden bravado worried him more than he cared to admit. Maybe that's why you keep running away from me all the time. I mean, really, he cackled, exposing the 8 tattooed across his tongue. Who taught you how to fight? Your parents. Because they did a shitty job. His shoulders twitched. Did you just? Neutra. Nell drew her blade in a flourish of steel. That was uncalled for. Take those words back at once. You stay out of this, bitch. Once I kill him, you're next. We settle this today. A faint ringing rose in Naruto's ears. A shitty job, huh? That was a new insult. For as far as he could remember, no one had ever insulted Minato and Kushina to his face. Not directly. They were great parents. The best a kid could hope for. If they'd lived, his life would have been so much different. They would have loved Nell. He'd only known them for a few minutes, only said a few words to them back them, but even so. The jab stung in the worst of ways. An unfamiliar emotion stirred in the pit of his stomach, something he'd long since forgotten. Oi, Naruto. Kurama's voice was a sibilant hiss. Did you hear what he just said? Blue eyes drifted shut. A long, shuddering sigh slipped through the air. Get him. Neutra's neck snapped back as a golden fist slammed into his chin. His feet left the floor of Las Noches, but he didn't get far. Even as he flew, a clawed hand caught him by the ankle and swung him back down with horrid force, shattering the balcony underfoot. Together, they slammed into the sands below. The lower Arankar snarled at him as they grappled with one another. Said snarl snapped into a gasp as firm fingers closed around his face, pushing him into the dunes. Naruto's jaw clicked open. A brilliant red swell built in the back of his throat, heralding a roar of purest rage to bathe his victim in dark light. Huh. A small, distant part of his brain blinked. So that's how I make a Sero. Neutra spat back at the last second. Gold clashed against crimson, flinging them apart in a rush of head. Not for long. His victim stumbled to their feet, trying to speak. Naruto didn't give him a chance. Take. A fist slammed into his windpipe, curdling the words in his throat. Back. An angry knee folded him like so much paper. What? Clenched knuckles crunched his face. You. Ribs crunched beneath a kick. Said. An outraged Rasengan struck Neutra's chest, drilling him into the sand. Why you little? He surged to his feet quickly thereafter, warding him off with his weapon. Golden light swelled around him, sheathing him in an eerie glower. You think this is over? I ain't gonna die. Not here. Not to some coward like you. Nell clambered down after him, her expression frantic. Don't let him use his release. Pray. Too late. Neutra howled, flinging his weapon high. Santa Teresa. Pressure. Naruto couldn't find any other word for it. One moment Neutra had been about to do something. In the next, his aura guttered out as an ocean of invisible force crashed down onto their shoulders. Neutra slammed onto his hands and knees with a dull wheeze of surprise, gasping for air. Nell sank to a knee behind him. Naruto grit his teeth and stood tall throughout it all. It wasn't so much uncomfortable as it was startling. Rather, it had simply appeared. You would weaken my ranks. A low voice intoned behind the one-eyed Espada. Know your place. Neutra's lone eye widened. Wait, I will not. You've disappointed me for the last time. Steel flashed out in a silver arc, simple, clean, and precise. Neutra's head tumbled from his shoulders. It struck the ground and bounced once, his face still frozen in the horror of his last moments. Bereft of balance, his body buckled and began to, why was it dissolving? As quickly as it came, the pressure ceased. Naruto pivoted and found himself gazing upon a rather unassuming young man stood behind the crumbling corpse. Clad in black robes, a white haori thrown his shoulders, he looked utterly ordinary. His face was friendly, tousled by brown hair, kind eyes, a gentle smile creased his lips. Were those actual glasses he wore? They were. He looked friendly enough. Just the sort of face you might see in a crow and think harmless. Under any other circumstance, he wouldn't have given him so much as a passing glance. But this man had just butchered someone right in front of them. My apologies. He cast his blade to the right with a sharp flourish, spattering blood at their feet. I couldn't help but intervene. Lord Aizen. Nell stiffened in his peripherals, eyes wide. Why did you? Fear. She radiated it like a cloud. Why? Why would she be afraid? Kill him. The man Shinigami sheathed his sword with a faint, bemused smile. You know full well why. He brought disgrace to the name of the Espada. In any case, something in his smile made the normally stoic young woman quail. I believe I've found his replacement. Naruto quirked a brow. You're talking about me, aren't you? There was something off about this guy. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. Aizen wore a smile, but it felt false, for lack of a better word. His instincts were shrieking at him, and so he delved deeper, stretching his senses outward, throwing them at him as one might cast a net. Looking underneath, he pierced the veil of the unassuming man before him. Kurama absolutely hissed. And they call me a monster. I am. What he found there had him recoiling, least of all because this man, no, this thing was suddenly looking at him again. Might I have your name? No harm in giving his name, at least. Naruto. His entire being tensed. Naruto Uzumaki. Nice ta Micha. Naruto. Was it? The strange man smiled at his words. Would you mind looking at my sword? Sure, he hummed, smiling genially. But you have to look at my fist, first. Aizen blinked, not quite comprehending his words. What? Clenched knuckles barreled into his face. Mind games. He'd forgotten pain. It was something of an embarrassing truth for Aizen Sosuke. He'd grown so powerful over so many centuries, that he could no longer recall what it felt like to take a punch. Perhaps he had once during his youth. Perhaps he'd felt pain before in his younger days. But he simply couldn't remember. Until now. Until today. When a brightly clad Arankar decked him right in the schnoz. Now it blazed through his face like wildfire, agony so intense that he actually blacked out for a moment. When he came to, he found himself flat on his back, staring up at the dead sky of Hawako Muendo. My, his dazed mind supplied, the moon's quite lovely tonight. Was that a falling star? No, they didn't have those here, and they certainly didn't glow gold. ... Oh, dear, he twisted his body to the side. Just as well he did. Not a moment later he heard a sandal-clad foot crash down where his face used to be. Sand sprayed forth from the impact, obscuring his foe. No matter. He could still sense him and he'd not be caught unawares again. Said foe slammed through the smokescreen and snapped a kick into his ribs, fracturing three, to send him skidding across the sand. From there, instinct took over. He righted himself, warding Kyoka Suigetsu before his face. A hand clamped down on his shoulder. Where are you looking? Gold flashed. Clenched knuckles barreled into his face. His glasses shattered. Blood flew through the air. He spun, Shikai at the ready, only to find his opponent hadn't opened his eyes. Had he guessed at his Shikai? How frightening. No, mustn't panic. Be calm. Serene like a placid mirror. reflecting only the outer world back at it itself, and none of his inner turmoil. When the blonde came at him again, his blade flicked out, and into the sand. "Why ever are you attacking me for?" The jolly Arankar still had his fist thrust forward at him, knuckles weeping blood. His blood. Now he didn't lower it. Baleful blue eyes met his across the dunes. Rooted him where he stood. "You're not the first guy to try and hit me with a genjutsu." His was a low, gravelly warning. "I won't be fooled." Genjutsu. What was that? A thin line of blood ran down his nose. Lovely. Not broken. Then, with his physical state assured and a reprieve gained, his brilliant mind began to ponder the matter before him. It had been quite some time since he'd been caught unawares. How intriguing. Aizen felt no anger. Why would he? This was a momentary slip. A lapse. Little more. His plans were not in jeopardy. Not yet. As such, he felt he could be forgiven for taking a moment to bask in this rare surprise. Why had the hollow struck him? Had he given himself away? If so, how? Did he possess the ability to read minds? Unlikely. He'd only reacted with anger when he'd drawn his blade, intending to hypnotize. A thought dawned. Pity. He would have liked to take him alive for study, but across the way the blonde tensed. "Don't even think about it." Aizen raised his head. An epiphany struck. Was that it, then? Could he sense some manner of negative intent perhaps? If so, that might be a problem. Frankly, he would have preferred the mind readings. Thoughts could be concealed, but to mask one's true intent. Difficult, even for one such as him. Did they have to be enemies? He'd converted some of his most intractable adversaries into allies. What other options did he have? He could weave an illusion around Nalil, spur the woman to attack while he was distracted, but at what cost? Doing so now would burn any bridge he hoped to build. A cornered rat always fought the hardest, and if he pushed this young man he'd have no choice but to slay him. The truth, then, if this one took issue, he could always slay him. On a whim, he sheathed his sword. All or nothing. He had once chance to convince the being before him. "My apologies." He adopted a small, chagrined smile, and bowed his head. "Perhaps we got off on the wrong foot. Ya think. Uzumaki Naruto." He spoke slowly, ponderously even, choosing each word with infinite care. "Do you not feel that this world is lacking?" The blonde looked away, looked to Nalil, and scratched at the back of his head. "Dunno. Haven't been here that long. But it is." His voice hardened as he hearkened to the conversation. "Both here, the soul society, and the living world beyond, all are in desperate need of repair. You are new to this realm, yet you've seen how quickly your kind are to turn upon one another. Would you live in such a world?" His gaze shifted to the shattered shards of Neutra's weapon in the sand. Those bright blue orbs flicked back to Nell. I keep telling ya, I ain't dead." He was, technically, and under the Soul King's stagnant rule, the current system was falling apart. Slowly, inexorably, but it was crumbling all the same. "Wait, there's a world outside this one." Those words rang with truth. Was he truly so ignorant? Indeed, several, all are unbalanced, left unchecked. Aizen nodded slowly, not trusting himself to speak anything but the truth, not when he didn't know the depth of the boy's sensory ability. "What I am working toward is a grand goal." He held out a hand toward him. "Allow me to be frank. I wish to kill the god of these worlds, that is to say, slay the Soul King himself. To that effect I need an army." "All right." He didn't expect the blonde to nod. "I can understand that much. I've met a god before. They're jerks." Aizen's jaw clicked open before he managed to comport himself. "I beg your pardon." Behind the blonde, Nalil whimpered. "You, what?" On paper it sounded too fantastic to believe, Yet his words rang with truth all the same. It also troubled him. The idea of multiple gods was not something he'd accounted for. There should only be one. Yup. As they looked on aghast, Naruto clasped both hands behind his head. Kagaya was one crazy bitch, but she was definitely a goddess. I'll tell you about her sometime. The blonde tilted his head. What comes next? Once you kill this god of yours. Here it was, the moment of truth. Nothing but complete and utter honesty would do. I intend to take his place, to bring order and peace through the world, he said frankly. That is all. You're not going to use a moon or trap people in an illusion or yacht. Confusion twisted its way through him. Why would I do that? No reason. Just axing. In the world he intended to make, there would be no need for such parlor tricks. Everyone would live in harmony once he founded his dynasty. True, there might be growing pains in the beginning perhaps, but one could not make an omelet as they say, without breaking a few eggs. But he was looking at him now, and he must attend. I intend to eviscerate anyone who seeks to control me. He spread his arms wide, showing himself harmless. Nothing more, nothing less. It felt good to be honest after all these centuries. Maybe he should try more often. To reach his realm of the Spirit King, however, I require a special key, which in turn requires a great many souls to be forged. Those blue eyes fastened on him. Yeah, no, find another way. I ain't letting you kill innocents. Of course he'd have qualms about that. Then what do you propose? Can't be that hard to find a way there. The young man paced away, shaking his head. Give me enough time and power and I could probably tear my way in. He paused, glancing over his shoulder over him. I'd like to see this god myself, ya know. A world where you eat people to survive, that doesn't sit well with me. Aizen stilled the rush of anticipation that shot through him. Was this truly happening? Well, far be it from him to throw away a potential pawn. No, no, no. This man was more than a pawn, more than Jin and Tucson could ever be. Smiling, he offered Naruto his hand. Partners, then. 0.0.0.0. He makes a compelling argument. So did Obito. Naruto thumbed his chin, considering. Can we trust him? We can trust him to do what he believes to be in his best interests. Close enough. And we need allies. Not at all by his liking, but it would have to do. Aizen had been honest after their brawl if nothing else. So long as he didn't try to ensnare him with his sword again, he could tolerate him. For now, bloody silver tongue. He was the only one who should have had that. What about you? He flicked a curious glance Nell's way. What's your say in this? The Espada's face bled a bright cherry red. It's nothing you need concern yourself with. But I am concerned. He pivoted, grabbing her by the shoulder. That Neutra was out to get you. Is that really how it is out here? Kill or be killed. She averted her eyes and gripped one arm close to her bosom. It is our way. Then maybe things need to change. I agree. He blinked. Nell, say what now? I said I agree. She stepped to him and laid a hand on his. But the change you seek to implement will not be easy. Still, that was sweet of you. What you did for me. She dithered for a moment, bright eyes flicking this way and that like some skittish foal. I won't forget this. Then she moved. Warm, soft, the faintest brush of lips against the corner of his mouth. Kurama whistled. Aizen made a faint amused sound. Naruto touched a hand to his cheek. There. Nalil kept her head down, refusing to look at him, not willing to let him see just how red her face was. I'll see you tomorrow. She vanished in a crackle of sound. You've already won her over. Aizen chuckled softly. It seems I've underestimated you yet again. Pivoting, he offered him his hand once more. What say you, partners? Naruto considered the palm as one might a venomous snake. Some might call this a mistake. Maybe it was. Still, better the devil you knew than the one you didn't. Aizen's goal sounded good on paper. It was the means he intended to use that worried him. And his words worried him. If there really was a God in this world, and if they'd truly let everything go to hell like this. If you do something I don't like, he jabbed a finger his way with intent, I'll have to kick your. The Shinigami offered a genial smile in return. I'd expect nothing less. Shall we begin? Naruto stepped in and grasped his palm. Fine. Where do we start? Together. Two monsters shook hands. Thus was an accord struck. Release. Time passed strangely in Hawako Muendo. With the moon ever present without and the false sun within, Naruto had trouble telling night from day, much less the hours. He tried to keep track of it all. Really, he did. In the end, he couldn't. How much time passed in that hollow world, he never knew. Days, weeks, months. It didn't feel like a year, but he had no way of knowing. He tried to keep himself distracted in the interim. Training with Nell, talking with Aizen, that sort of thing. Even so, it felt like something was missing. And his hunger persisted. Alas, such thoughts did little to divert the cold steel currently hurtling toward his face. Right, should probably dodge that. Meh, she's still slow. With a small smile sigh, the bemused blonde planted both hands in his pockets and bent backward at the knees, leaving his spine neatly parallel with the ground. From said position he had the perfect angle to watch his foe hurtle past and above him, body fully extended, unable to arrest their momentum, unable to dodge. Long green hair tickled his nose. Her eyes met his, widening in surprise. Naruto couldn't help but wink up at her. Nothing personal, Nell. He whirled and drove a knee into her stomach. She rocketed up into the air with a yelp. Only for him to meet her there, one leg raised high over his head, silhouetted against the fake sun above. Steeling his heart against the cry of pain that was sure to follow, he brought that axe kick crashing down on Nell's back. She rocketed down, hurtling to the dunes below. A pillar of sand heralded her landing, spearing high into the air. 3 seconds passed. Another now. His lips pursed in a frown as he descended to the lip of the crater he'd created. Hey, you all right down there? A dull crackle of sound was his only warning. He laughed and hopped in place, tucking his knees into his torso, colorful robes fluttering in the passage of her blade. It missed him by the narrowest margin. Sandal-clad feet alighted atop the flat of her blade, balancing atop the slender steel. It would be the simplest thing to pivot and kick her in the face, to drive his victory home. He didn't want to. Any chance we could call this here? Don't hesitate. She chided him. Hit me. I can take it. Reluctantly, he complied. Nell took his kick like a soldier. She didn't make a sound, even as she hurtled backwards, even when her body struck one of the many crimson pillars dotting the landscape, burst through it, then came crashing out the other side. From this distance he didn't see so much as a scratch on her. She climbed to her feet, dusted off her white robes, and nodded once. Her smile told him he'd impressed her. The reminder had the back of his neck burned. We done, he called out to her, voice ringing across the wastes. I really don't wanna hurt ya. She hurtled out of the smoke and drove a fist into his face. He crashed back head over heels, laughing all the way. Nell spat a sero at him as he flew. He casually pivoted in the air and kicked the crimson blast away, never once using his arms. It detonated in a dune, showering them with sand. See, he continued, lowering his left leg. Reflexes are still sharp as ever. Sharper, even. I'm a full second faster than before. She puffed her cheeks out at him in a rare pout. You're not going to use your hands, are you? Why would he? He'd agreed to the condition just this morning. Wasn't about to break it. Nope. He sang back. This is training for you as much as it is me. He wasn't sure how long they'd been at this. Nalil's idea of training left little to be desired. She could be downright ruthless when the situation called for it, but she didn't show any signs of slowing. Even with the handicap he'd given her today, she seemed determined to go at it all day, determined to improve, to keep her skills from rusting, to excel in all things. Almost made him admire her drive, it did. At least she made some semblance of sense. Better. She crossed the distance in an instant to appear at his side. You're getting the hang of Sonito. Really don't need it, ya know. He shrugged for what felt like the umpteenth time. I've got speed aplenty already. This from the boy who can barely use a sero. She flicked his nose and arched a slender brow when he squawked at her. You're strong, but you still falter when it comes to some Arankar techniques. I haven't even seen you use a decent garganta yet. He frowned at her. 'Cause I don't need to. I don't even know how to get to this human world you keep telling me about. I'll figure it out sooner or later. Must you? Of course he must. Because he didn't feel dead, therefore, he wasn't. He'd been starving for ages now, hunger gnawing at his insides. Honestly, if he didn't eat some proper food soon, he was going to lose his mind. Hell looked like she wanted to argue the point further, only to abstain. Let us change the subject for now. What's he like? Lord Aizen, I mean. Naruto paused, brought up short by the sudden inquiry. You're asking me that, now. It's been a bit. You spend more time with him than anyone else here. She held up a finger to forestall another argument. Even the second and first Espada are seldom granted an audience with him. The two of you speak nearly every day. I find myself curious. She wasn't going to let this go, was she? Nell might act soft, but beneath that gentle smile she had a spine of steel. He's different, he said at last. Bright eyes swiveled to regard him. Different, how? Not sure I can explain it properly. He scratched the back of his head and plonked down to the sand. It's kinda complicated, ya know. She smiled, sitting beside him. Then simplify it. Fine. The man might be a mystery to most, but most couldn't sense emotions the way he could. Aizen felt alone, most of the tone. As though he stood apart from everyone else. Not by choice or will or any such thing, but simply because he had been born that way. Some might say he'd been destined for such from the moment of his birth. His thoughts cut from a different cloth, meant going against the grain, that sort of thing. To hell with that. You made your own destiny. So can he. True. Of course, he could hardly tell Nell that in so many words. She wouldn't understand. So he settled for the simple route. Lonely. Nell's brow shot up, but he didn't stop. He's a bit of a talker, but I think I've got a feel for his motivations. He turned and looked out across the sands, to which she followed his gaze. Don't get me wrong, he's been behaving since our bargain, but it doesn't feel like he's trying to be a prick about it or anything. Bah, a hand flung up in exasperation. He keeps asking my opinion about stuff. I ain't used to it. Some might say that's what friends do. Friends. Us. Naruto squinted her way. Dunno if I'd call him that. Not yet, at any rate. Don't worry. The second he tries to pull one over on me, bam. He smacked a fist into his open palm. I'll knock his lights out. Nell favored him with a small, mysterious smile. You really would, wouldn't you? Well, yeah, I don't go back on my word. HM. She laughed lightly to herself and surprised him by standing. You truly are an anomaly. You exist outside the ranking of the Espada. You claim not to be dead, but you've allied yourself with us nevertheless. I wonder what some might say of that. Yet for all there are some who would challenge you. He scoffed. No surprise there. She pivoted and touched a hand to her sword with intent. Which is precisely why you must be prepared. This again. I'm no closer to understand why I'm here than I am to finding my release state. Nalil thumbed her chin. You must have a one. All Arankar do. Some have two. She really wasn't going to let this go, was she? What's yours, then? Her smile startled him in its sheer purity. Would you like to see? Naruto felt his face burn. There was something in her words, the way she said them. It sounded personal, intimate. He wasn't sure why. He'd never seen an Arankar release their sword before. Everyone he'd bothered to ask had been cagey about it, especially that Ulquiorra guy. Truly, he didn't understand why. Palming his face, he looked away. Why you gotta say it like that? An Arankar's release is no laughing matter. Nalil elaborated without hesitation, her words taking on a lecturing tone. Indeed, it's a very personal thing. It reveals what we were before as hollows, adding that power to our own. Doing so enhances us, strengthens us, releases our inhibitions and our limits. When he didn't respond, she planted a hand on her hip. Do you truly wish to see me? The other reached out for him. This is not something I would offer in jest. He reached and clasped it. I do. Very well. Bright eyes sparkled as she pulled him to his feet. Perhaps a practical lesson wouldn't hurt. Her sword slid into its sheath with a sigh, notching its guard now as he looked on. You seem to learn best after you've seen something firsthand. Well, you're not wrong. Watch closely, now, she whispered softly. And don't tell anyone about this. His eyes tracked her Zanpakuto, taking it in as it cleared its emerald scabbard once more. He noted the light green hilt, a guard that rather resembled crescent moons joined at the back. As he looked on, Nalil raised her blade up horizontally, placing a hand against the flat edge of her blade. Pale pink smoke began to sizzle, glowing in a faint haze. Naruto looked on, entranced. Nell closed her eyes, inhaled, exhaled, and then, declare, Gamuza. Her words were the catalyst. The second she spoke, that smoke swelled into a blistering burst of raw energy. Violent violet light swelled forth to envelop her, tearing at sand itself, a radiance so bright Naruto found even he couldn't bring himself to stare into it over long. Finally he had to look away. This is a resurrection. Nell's voice rang through the fog. Behold, she swept a hand through the smoke. His jaw clicked open. Damn. In her true state, Nalil took the form of a graceful armored centaur. Her hollow mosk's horns curved outward, framing the sides of her face. Likewise, her shoulders stood sheathed by brilliant white spalders that flowed across her shoulder blades, to her neck. Gleaming white gauntlets completed the ensemble, flowing up into a matte black material to protect her hands. Her sword was perhaps the most startling change of all. That once simple katana had since been replaced by a looming double-bladed lance. Looked like she knew how to use it, too. All in all, she rather resembled as well as reminded him of a jouster straight out of a storybook, albeit far more deadly. Do you understand now, Naruto? She hefted her massive weapon his way, considering him with stern, sad eyes. This is what it means to be an Arankar. We are not human. None of us are. We never will be. Simply speaking, the words almost seemed to wound her, somehow. It is best to accept this, as I have. Embrace it, but don't let it define you. How did he respond to that? How could he respond? She cantered forward and touched a hand to his cheek. You'll understand someday, Naruto. He looked away. Not sure I wanna, ya know. Perhaps. However, that being said, with neither word nor warning, Nell shifted her weight on her hind legs and reared back, putting distance between them. It is possible to surpass your resurrection as well. Suddenly, that sad smile of hers gained a grim edge. I could go one step further if I really wanted to. This bulky form has limits. In truth, I much rather prefer the second state beyond it. A vicious sense of pressure reared its head over him, bringing with it a different sort of tension. His eyes bulged. You mean there's more? She smiled softly. Allow a lady some secrets. Now. Dodge. His hackles rose. Her arms swung back. Oi, don't you throw that at me. Lanzador Verde. .0.0.0. It seems you enjoyed yourself today. More or less. Naruto rolled his shoulder, working the kinks out of it as he traipsed inside. Got myself smacked around a bit. Suppose it's my own fault. Hardly the greeting he'd expected from Aizen, but there it was. The man seemed to enjoy surprising him these days, often arriving at the strangest times. He'd taken to appearing out of the blue. Really, he shouldn't have been surprised to find the man lurking in his quarters. He had nothing to hide, so what did it matter? No, it did matter, because Aizen never, ever came to his quarters. Not once, in the entire time since they'd formed their unlikely little partnership. He knew the man wanted something from him. He often did these days. Lowering his guard here would be a mistake. Best keep himself sharp. Sure enough, he wasn't surprised. Would you mind looking into something for me when you have the chance? He sighed. All right, I'll bite. Who, where, when? In hindsight, he really shouldn't have asked that. With a smile, his comrade held up a worn photograph for him to see. Naruto's brow furrowed. Aizen, I know that look. Why are ya so interested in this kid? You wound me. His manners were smooth as cream. I mean him no harm. I simply wish to accelerate his growth. Step forward. A dark fracture split the afternoon sky of Karakura town. Were anyone to glimpse the phenomenon from afar, they would have been treated to a most curious sight indeed, for that fracture gradually spread into a crack, forcing the very sky itself to part. In time it became a flowing fissure, then an outright hole, in reality itself stretching out across the horizon before widening dramatically. Within a minute it was an outright cavern. Two figures could be seen standing within its darkened depths, a man and a woman. The taller of the duo stretched his arms and hummed a merry tune. Ah, fresh air. Finally, some color. I was losing my mind in that washed-out world. Really, Naruto. Nell found herself hiding a small smile behind her right hand as she watched her companion stretched to his heart's content. For all his strength and power, Naruto could be surprisingly innocent at times. Do you truly find it that impressive? Well, we're human, ain't we? He winked her way and she cursed herself for the heat searing up her neck. Humans need sunlight and fresh air. We can't lurk about in the dark all the time, ya know. And I don't know about you, but I'm starving. Another curiosity. He shouldn't feel any hunger at all, yet he claimed to. Still on about that, are we? Yup. Naruto puffed up his cheeks and thumped his chest with a fist. No matter what you say, I still believe I'm a human being. And before you argue otherwise, so are you. Long lashes fluttered in a slow blink. Me, he granted her a lazy grin. I don't see anyone else here. How unexpected of him to say such. Naruto's bullish insistence on humanity aside, he'd never once called anyone else such. Not even Lord Aizen. For him to openly refer to her as such, that was new. Perhaps he was being more open now that they were well and truly away from Hawako Muendo. The notion humbled her, and confused her. What makes you say that? You're nice. He turned his gaze toward the sun, basking in it. Wind whipped forth to at his blonde bangs. And besides, you have a heart. Nalil most certainly did. She felt it skip a beat now. Ulquiorra would argue otherwise. Ain't talkin' about that gloomy grump. His finger jutted out to poke near her collarbone, just above where a human heart should be. I'm talking to you. You're my partner. Nell felt her pulse spike. Her eyes widened, narrowed now as his hand withdrew. Did he even realize what such a statement meant among hollows? No. Of course not. He didn't know their ways. How could he? For all his claims to humanity, he'd been reborn as an Irankar. Even so, to call someone what he just had, well. She was interested in him, intrigued by him even, but this was much too sudden. To his credit, Naruto noticed her expression and frowned, unwilling to exist the Garganta as she hadn't. He leaned back into the portal. Stuck my foot in my mouth again, didn't I? Nell worried her lower lip between her teeth. You should choose your words more carefully. To call one a partner among hollows, even as a Rankar, that means something. She hesitated, but seeing no comprehension in his eyes, took the plunge. It goes well beyond the bond between an Espada and Fracken, which you and I are not. Yeah. His head bobbed. We're equals. Heat, flame, shame. Nalil made embarrassed Nell noises. He squinted at her. I feel like I'm missing an awful lot of context here. How to tell him without making a fool of herself? She couldn't think of any such way. Mates. In the end she squeaked the word out, covering her face with both hands to peek through her fingers. To call us partners, equals, implies that we are a mated pair. Oh, Naruto blinked, flushed. Oh, here at last, comprehension dawned across his face. His head snapped to the side, either unable or unwilling to look her in the eye. I mean, you're real pretty and all, nice too, and I like being around ya, but. He scratched the back of his head and looked to her at last with a rueful chuckle. She didn't miss the faint tint of pink dusting his cheeks. Ain't marriage a bit sudden? Her brain fizzled. Marriage. Gods above, he could be such a boy sometimes, speaking without thinking. Well, yeah. His grin was more than a little embarrassed. Mom always said I should settle down with a nice girl. Seems like a human thing to do, ya know. 1,000 tiny Nalils cried out in her mind. Forward ho, me hearties. This ship is setting sail. I wouldn't mind. Judging by his expression, she'd said that aloud. Naruto's brow shot up into his hair. What was that? Nothing. She spun away to hide her steaming red face, cursing herself for the slip. Yikes. A wild part of her hollow half warmed to his words, wanting to jump him here and now. The human in her remained more flustered than anything else. Already she could feel herself losing to base instinct. This was all his fault. She'd spent too much time with him. He'd corrupted her, ruined her. She'd been a prim and proper Arankar before Naruto came along, no interest in romance or any such thing. Losing Dondochaka and Pesci to Neutra and Shielaporo's machinations had wounded her heart, and she'd no intention of ever opening it to another again. Or so had been her intent. He'd changed that, made her feel wanted, needed. Now an insidious little voice nudged her. What was the harm? Couldn't she have something for herself? Lord Aizen wouldn't care. If anything, he might encourage it. He'd mentioned some passing interest in half-breeds prior to this request. Could hollows have children? No. Don't think that. Too late. Her mind was away. She could imagine them now, grinning girls with green hair and bashful boys who would look like Nell. Way. She snapped back to reality with a squeak. Right. Must focus. They had a task to attend. It's nothing. I'm fine. Naruto eyed her closely. If you say so, I do say so. She shook her head furiously to stymie the rising tide. Don't think about it. Don't get ahead of yourself. You really are dangerous. She muttered to herself. I need to be wary of that silver tongue. She realized her mistake a moment later. Blah. Naruto stuck his tongue out, reveling in her blush. Nell kicked out at his leg and he withdrew, laughing. With that, she felt a modicum of self-control return. So, she asked of him, where should we start? Don't worry about that. He stepped out of her Garganta with a shrug and strode across the air, forcing her to follow him or be left behind as he descended to the street below on a series of invisible steps. "I've got this. But first things first." He sniffed once, twice, thrice now, scenting the air like a fox. "Where's that smell coming from? Oh, dear." Naruto's head whipped toward an open alley. "There." He lunged forward with a whoop of delight, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. "Ramen. 0.0.0.0. Urahara twitched. He'd sensed something just now. Well, that can't be a good thing. 0.0.0.0. The hollow crumbed, cleaved in two by a single blow, its body split in half and dissolved, leaving nothing behind but a fading scream. Ichigo shouldered his sword with a grimace. Try as he might, he'd never gotten used to that. It was so damn strange. Monsters shouldn't dissolve like that, even if they couldn't be seen by normal people. Bastards like this thing shouldn't exist. Rukia had tried explaining that to him once, but he still didn't much understand it himself. Suffice to say, the only good hollow was a dead hollow. "Not bad, Ichigo." He preened a little at Rukia's praise. This was nothing. And really, it wasn't. Felt like he was growing stronger every day. On to the next, then. He turned a quizzical look her way. Odd, she seemed to be staring past him. "Oi, Rukia, you all right? You're spacing out. Move, you fool. Too little, too late." Ramen. Something blindsided Ichigo from the left. By the time he registered their presence, it was over. A body smacked into him at speed. Stars, entire galaxies, burst before his vision. Then, quite suddenly, he was airborne, sent flying with impossible force. It was a short-lived flight. His face struck a wall. Slid down it. "Sorry about that," a youthful voice crowed through his ringing ears. Strong hands nudged him onto his back. Righted him. Pulled him up. "Didn't see ya there. You're not bleedin' too bad, are ya?" Ichigo felt a chill in the air. A shadow fell over him. He pivoted in place. Where once there had been an empty street behind him, it was empty no longer. Someone stood before him, a man in bright clothes. There was a hole in his chest, bits of bone plastered to the side of his face. Sweat ran down his brow. How did he sneak up on me? What even is he? Naruto. A green-haired woman clad in white and black alighted beside him. "You mustn't rush off like." "Like what?" The blonde frowned. "Nell, ya look like you've seen a ghost." ... Silence reigned supreme. The woman saw him. Nudged this Naruto guy. Is that him? He recognized him too, apparently, because that grip on his hand became ironclad. Ah, damn it. 5 firm fingers clamped down on his shoulder, tightening in a vice. "I didn't think we'd actually find him this early." He tried to pull back, but he held fast. "You must be Kurosaki Ichigo. Substitute Shinigami, right?" At his dumbstruck nod, his smile became decidedly chagrined. "Sorry about running ya over, and I'm really sorry to rush this out of the blue, but, well. Would you kindly die?" Movement. It all happened so fast. He heard the dull crack of sound, felt it now as open palms slammed into his face and caught his chin. His body flipped backwards through the air, struck a power line, crashed back to the ground. All this in an instant. His very soul ached from the sudden shock. What was that for? "Sturdier than you look." The blonde squinted down at him. "Good to know. Still, what's with that ridiculous sword? Is that supposed to be your Zanpakuto? Why haven't you released it?" "Release what now? The hell are you talking about? Really?" His foe's face fell, smiling wiped away. "Are you seriously that much of a rookie? This won't even be fun." A lone finger rose, red light swirling at the tip of his digit, growing larger with each passing second. What had Rukia called that? Sero. The sight of it left him stricken. He couldn't move. Why couldn't he move? Try to dodge this, Ichigo. If you don't. Pale fire crash. A sudden Kido smacked the back of his head. Baleful blue eyes swung to the side. Do you mind? Rukia lowered her arm, palm spitting Smike. Not another step. See this. He made a point of raising his foot and planting it down. This is me stepping. Another Kido slapped him in the face. He scowled at her. Could you not? Squirt. Class is in session. Nell. The green-haired woman moved in an instant, faster than he could see, seizing his comrade by the throat. Ichigo lunged her way, only to find himself blocked once more. Rukia, you damn hollow. Let her go. She's not a part of this. I'm not a hollow. I'm Naruto. And you. The man scoffed as his companion the girl over her shoulder and growled at him. You're reactive, Ichigo. He swung his blade with his might, only to find it caught. What are you talking about? He strained against him to no avail. The hell I am. If anything, I'm proactive. No. Clawed fingers tightened around his blade. I can sense your feelings, and I've got the measure of you now. You're doing this all wrong. Frankly, it's sickening. Whiskered cheeks dimpled in a scowl. You keep talking about protecting others, but what can you protect with a brittle blade like that? Cracks scrawled across his nameless sword. Even now, you're hesitating. They slammed their forehead against his, eyes blazing. I could kill you right now, if I really wanted to. Maybe I should. Might even be a mercy. Quote. Still won't unassault your sword. Fine. His shoulders slumped. Quote. I give up. There's no helping you like this. Guess we'll be doing this the hard way. Was this guy for real? He couldn't tell if he was joking, not anymore. He struck out. Sparks flew as he struck the man in the chest. A blonde brow rose. You think that after everything else, something like this hurts? No. He shook his head slowly, blonde bangs swaying from side to side. No. This doesn't even tickle. As he looked on the tiny cut closed, flesh winding its way back into existence. When was the last time you took a good hard punch to the face? I can tell just by looking at ya. You don't know the meaning of pain. But that's alright. I'm gonna show ya. Bam. Thruck. What's gonna happen when you face someone strong? Someone like me, and nobody's there to save you. What will you do, then? A knee slammed into his gut, folding him in half. I'll tell you. Another blow. Clenched knuckles cracking across his face, rocking him to the side. Fight back. You have things to protect, don't you? He kicked out, launching him through a building. Don't hesitate. A spinning kick sent him skidding back the way he'd come. Don't doubt. Don't ask yourself why. Just fight. How else can you protect your family, let alone yourself? His shadow loomed large over him, filling him with dread. The world slowed to an agonizing crawl as his arms swept up. This was it. Death. He was going to die. Snuffed out like a candle in the wind. Need some help, amateur. A low, bemused voice trickled in his ear. I'd be willing to lend you a hand, if you asked nicely. It all happened so fast. He beheld a pale figure in his mind's eye grinning from ear to ear. It looked a lot like him actually. An awful lot like him. Who are you? A ghostly hand touched his back. Finally. Heard me did you? Golden eyes gleamed as a pale chin came down over his shoulder, framed by a merry cackle. I thought you'd never ask, partner. After all, I am. It rang in his ears like a clarion call. The name tore out of the Reaper, with a roar as he swung his blade forward. Zangetsu. Naruto was smiling as the light enveloped him. Why? Why was he smiling? Why did he look so damn proud of him? Ichigo didn't have time to celebrate. Red light bloomed, cutting through his attack. His world erupted in a haze of pain. Face your fears. Getsuga Tenshou. Da. Look at you. Already learning your first move. Naruto clapped happily, grinning like the cat that caught the canary and slaughtered its entire family. You're growing up so fast, Strawberry. Still gotta work on your aim, though. Case in point. Think fast. His knee crashed up and Ichigo folded down over his limb like wet cardboard. A strangled gasp fled from the Reaper's lips. Naruto tutted once, patted his head, and brought his arm around, delivering an almighty elbow to the back of his would-be adversary's skull. Momentum did the rest and left Kurisaki's left his face intimate with asphalt in a way no self-respecting Shinigami desired. And yet despite that, he got up again. Truth be told, Naruto felt a strange sense of satisfaction about it all. Because you see, each time he knocked Ichigo down, the boy dragged himself to his feet. There it was again. Blasting him with a weak Sero only served to confirm his efforts. Kurosaki was getting stronger, faster, adapting. He hadn't been able to use that Getsuga Tenshou of his until just now. His style was still crude for the time being, brutish even, but the same could be said of him once, couldn't it? He only had more substance and style thanks to Nalil's rigorous efforts. Given the chance to improve, to be properly taught, he surely would. Speaking of which, a distant explosion had him craning his neck toward the southern edge of Karakura town. Well, she's certainly fulfilling her end of the bargain. Oh. His words peaked into a laugh as Zangetsu whistled by and shaved a strand of blonde hair just above his forehead. Much better, Strawberry. Almost got me that time. A wordless war was his only warning before the substitute Shinigami pivoted and struck at his face, blade wreathed in blue light. Stop calling me that. Much to the young man's chagrin, it crashed down into an open palm. Not a single drop of blood was spilled. That much hadn't changed. Even with this strange recovery of his, he hadn't been able to injure him. Not once. Not then and certainly not now. Merry blue eyes peeked out from behind the blade as he twisted it in his grasp. I will when you make me. Even now, Ichigo didn't give up. He braved this blade with both hands. Zangetsu howled with blue light and the world went white. The ensuing explosion devastated the street, kicked up a cloud of smoke, and did jack all to move him. Naruto squinted, blinking spot away from his vision. Not bad. That one made me feel all nice and toasty. What else ya got? A roaring wave of blue burst out of the mist and snapped his head to one side. No pain, only the vague sensation of forced movement. Impressive. Most impressive, but still not enough. He rode with the force of the blow and snapped a vicious kick into the space he knew his adversary occupied. The dull crunch of 3 ribs was his reward. Ichigo rocketed out of the smoke, struck the street 3 times, skipped across block like a flung stone, struck a building with an awful crack. Somehow the poor house held. The boy's bones didn't. He slid down its broken edifice with nary a sound. Naruto counted to 3. 3 more now, then finally hit the count of 9. Alighting upon a nearby lamppost, he looked down him the battered boy. You finally done over there. Sure enough, his words reactivated the ravaged Reaper. A string of angry curses followed. Zangetsu planted itself in the street. From there he used the massive blade as leverage to hoist himself upright. Wasted and gasping for air, he nevertheless hauled himself to his feet. Not yet. Good. He couldn't help but clap his hands, applaud his determination. That's the way, Ichigo. Never give up. This substitute Shinigami had spirit. Naruto could respect that much. Admire it, even. Ichigo really didn't know when to quit. No, that wasn't it. He knew he was outmatched here. But he didn't let that faze him. He kept pushing through, trying to make a miracle happen. Perhaps that was the source of his strength. He kept fighting because he felt he had to. Stopping now wouldn't help anyone. They both knew that. Fear here meant an ugly death. Hesitation was defeat. The ghost of a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Hesitation is defeat, huh? Ichigo righted himself with an irritated snarl. What are you talking about? He laughed a little, just reminiscing about the good, old days. Whatever his Zanpakuto was, Kurosaki was remarkably in sync with it. If it weren't for that, he would have keeled over hours ago. That he managed to persist in the face of such odds, well. It warmed his heart. Nell would say a dead man couldn't have a heart, but even he still didn't believe himself to be dead. Getsuga Tenshou. Sloppy, but definitely an improvement. Naruto laughed and jumped aside with a low whistle, grinning from ear as vicious azure wave annihilated the lamppost he'd been perched upon. It howled up into the sky and all but eviscerated a passing cloud. You bounced back quickly from that last attack, too. Not missing a beat, he kicked off the air and launched himself forward with a merry cackle. Show me more. Zangetsu met his fist head-on. The blade didn't crack, nor did his footing waver. Good. His will remained strong in the face of adversity. He'd need that for the battles to come. Help me, damn it, he'd whispered to someone just now. Oh, who are you talking to? The Reaper ducked and cut out at his legs, forcing him to hop over the blade. None of your damn business. I'm thinking it is. He drove a mid-air kick into his solar plexus, smashing him through a trash bin. Kurama sighed. He'll plateau at this rate. Don't leave things hanging like this. Naruto clicked his tongue at him. The hell y'all want me to do? Intimidate him. Give him a reason to fight. I ain't the best actor, ya know. Try. Fine, fine. Well, I guess that's all the time we have for today. He adopted what he hoped was a menacing smile. Keep at it, Kurosaki. Get nice and strong for our rematch, because if you don't, he raised a hand, finger pointing his way, and died a little inside. You won't need to worry about me. Your enemies will slaughter everyone and everything you hold dear. It was an empty threat, of course. He'd never do any such thing to anyone, and he certainly wouldn't let Aizen, but poor Kurosaki didn't know that now, did he? As far as he knew, his threat was good as gold. Aw man, I hate acting like the bad guy. Sure enough, something hardened in the young man's face. I won't let you. His lunge was even faster than before, but anger alone couldn't help. Zangetsu couldn't pierce his skin. Then get stronger, Kurosaki. He kicked him away with a forced sneer, one that felt alien to him. You have your Shikai, now achieve Bankai no. Go beyond. He knew quite well what a Bankai was, thanks to Nell's rigorous tutelage, and he happily imparted that now to the young Reaper. Don't just rely on your sword either. Branch out, adapt, gain the strength to make me bleed, to trample me the way I trampled you today. When someone tries to take what's rightful yours, you take everything from them in return. That's what a king does. Why you? A vicious headbutt sent him reeling anew. Was it his imagination just now, or did those brown eyes flash gold? Regardless, the expression he wore was that of a warrior, not a boy. Good. Just a little more now. Naruto closed with him again. There it is. That's the look. Another punch rattled Ichigo's blade. Once, twice, thrice. He wailed on him with no restraint. Ichigo's stance held firm throughout it all. Each blow blocked by the blade. Sadly, the same couldn't be said for the street. It finally burst beneath the force of his attack, and the moment it did, his footing faltered. A rousing right hook caught him square in the face and launched him away once more. This time, gravity lost its grasp upon him. His back struck a pair of power line. His still sparking soul hurtled through them, smashed into someone's roof, alighted there for a moment, and collapsed. A dull thud heralded his return to the ground. Well, I guess that'll do it. It's been fun, Strawberry. This time, Naruto didn't have to feign his smile. Be seeing ya. His part done, he planted both hands in his pockets and waltzed away from the unconscious Reaper. Probably better this way. He'd accelerated his growth, just like Aizen asked, and with no casualties to speak of. All in a day's work. With hope, Kurosaki would learn from this and become stronger still. Now to check in on Nell. She'd probably kept that other Shinigami busy, sure, but he hadn't heard from her in a while now. Blood splashed across his cheek. Naruto paused, touched a hand to his face, mildly surprised to find a small cut there. How'd that happen? Kurama sighed. On your left, fool. He craned his neck back. The stubborn Shinigami had found his feet once more. Stranger still, he'd flanked him somehow, for all the good it did him. Poor kid looked like death warmed over. His robes were battered and torn, body hunched across his blade, head hanging and face hidden by his shaggy hair. He looked every bit like a walking corpse. And yet, you're still not done. Ichigo's head snapped up. The sight there chilled him. What was that? For some strange reason, half the boy's face now stood sheathed behind an eerie white-red mask, the eye of which gleamed a wild gold, encompassing more and more of his countenance as he looked on. That once resolute visage was twisted in a crazed grin. Zangetsu hung loose at his side, gripped not by the tang that served as its hilt, but by the bandages wrapping it. Dark energy flowed forth from the blade, not that of a Shinigami, but something else. Something stranger. It felt like a hollow. Yet for all that, Ichigo didn't go berserk. He stood his ground. Sorry, a distorted voice flowed forth from the Shinigami's grinning mouth. But I can't let you kill this guy yet. I just woke up, after all. Just woke up. Do you have any idea how much you've pissed me off? Much to his confusion, Ichigo wagged a finger at him. Bad enough that I had to wrestle with old man bastard almost 1, 2, but now I gotta deal with you. A rare hint of joy crept into Naruto's heart. Here and now, he could understand why Aizen was so fixated on this boy. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? Ha! The entity puppeteering Ichigo's body only grinned at him. Strange. It both was, and wasn't Kurosaki. He found his curiosity piqued regardless. You don't know the half of it. His sword swept out, conjuring a wave of dark red light. Naruto batted it aside into the sky. Frowned now as he felt it singe his palm. That's more like it. I can actually feel that. Ichigo yanked on Zangetsu's bandages, whipping the blade back into his hand. Give me a second, and all you be feeling is oblivion. That or disappointment. He shrugged. Go ahead, Ichigo. Flip that coin. See what happens. A crackle of movement was his only warning before Zangetsu came crashing down on the back of his head. He stopped it with a single finger. That lone digit folded over the blade, effectively locking it in place. With his free hand he calmly reached up, curled it into a claw, and... Ah! Come on! Ichigo recoiled with a snarl. What are you made of? Pure metal. Might as well be. Naruto thrust his palm forward, Rasengan gleaming in hand. Time for you to sleep now. Yusanuva. The jutsu struck the hollow-feed Shinigami at speed, crashing headlong into his chest with all the power of a hurricane. There could be no contest. Away he went, crashing through one building, another, a third now. Naruto watched him recede into the distance. Waited now, as his cries faded away, then fell entirely silent. Still no sign of him. Was it finally over? On a whim, he walked after the wayward Reaper, slowly. Just to be safe. Sure enough, he found Ichigo sprawled out beneath a mound of rubble. Lucky him. He'd crashed through an abandoned house. No casualties to burden his conscience. Somehow the boy was still conscious, if only just, judging by the angry noises he made. A quick touch, a flare of chakra, and he mended the worst of his wounds, bringing him back from the edge of death. You did good, Ichigo. He patted his head, unable to help himself. Real good. Train hard, and you'll never be this weak again. He reached down and gave his mask a good hard flick with his index finger. It shattered like brittle glass. Dull brown eyes squinted behind it. Damn it, what are you? Believe it or not, I'm your friend. Get some sleep, now. Another finger flick sent him under completely. Naruto took 3 long strides backward. A deep breath now, and then, arg, he doubled over, clutching his head with a whine. That was so embarrassing. I aced like some cartoon villain. So cliché, I wanna die. There, it was for the best. The blonde kicked the ground. Best you give the speech next time. That was humiliating. Still he'd left a lasting impression on the Reaper, and accelerated his growth, just like Aizen had asked. His favor was done. With some hope, a bit of skill and a pinch of luck, Kurosaki Ichigo would turn out just fine. Now it was time for some ramen. Wasn't it? Was he tempting Murphy's Law here? Kinda felt like he was, ya know. He looked left, now right. Nary a soul in sight. Great. Naruto turned, craning his neck toward the same scent as before. Ain't nobody gonna stop me now. A cackling golden comet fell out the sky and crashed into him at speed. Down he went, smashed back first into the asphalt. What the hell? A rough voice growled above him as someone pressed a foot down on his throat. Is this what I get for listening to that four-eyed bastard? He said there was a strong hollow here, oi. He blinked through bleary eyes and found a one-eyed man grinning down at him. And who was that sitting on his shoulder? Don't tell me you're dead after that. Oh, come on. Blue eyes blazed red and he bucked with all his might, tearing free from the trap. Get offa me. He swung a fist upward. It met a jagged blade. Remarkably it blocked him. The grinning man leered down at him. Now that's more like it.